We're good.
Well, what a privilege to be here with you today. I do have prepared remarks. I'm sorry if it might sound a little stilted, but I've got a lot to cover, and I just want to make sure that I have everything. Before I begin, I do want to talk a little bit about this gentleman here. My husband, Eric Vasquez, is actually a journalist as well in northern New Mexico. He started a newspaper 4 years ago now, almost exactly, actually. Yeah. In this time when everyone said, "What are you doing? You're going to start a newspaper?" So he has worked with Aaron, Carol Clark, maybe a lot of you know, up in Los Alamos. They are business partners together with the Daily Post Media Group. And so, you know, I just am married to a fellow lover of print. I know the way of the journalist these days is I wanted to just mention that. And, you know, Eric has been really my support for all of this decade that I've been running and serving in office, so I just wanted to recognize him, because I always forget to recognize Eric. So Eric.
More than a driver.
Eric should be a member. I was just telling him that myself.
I'm not a joiner.
Well, just come for lunch.
Yes, so he always introduces himself as my driver, just sort of to, you know, it's kind of his sense of humor to sort of diminish, but yeah, he has been my support system for a decade. Well, actually, we've been together for 2 decades, so for 2 decades he's been my support system. So, to all of you published authors and journalists, I mean, wow, I just kind of had to take a little bit of a deep breath when I heard the round robin and everyone talking about their years of experience and their accomplishments. I'm very privileged to be in, someone said, such august company. So thank you all so much for having me. I am Stephanie Garcia Richard, and I am proud to be the first woman, the first Latina, the first educator elected to the land office, which is the office responsible for funding education. Before running and winning the seat for land commissioner, as Aaron said, I did serve for 6 years in the state legislature, and I represented the beautiful Jemez Mountain District. That was all of Los Alamos County, part of Sandoval, Santa Fe, and Rio Arriba counties. Aaron also said I was born in Tucumcari, raised in Silver City, and I grew up in a family that ranches on the eastern plains. If any of you are familiar with Highway 104 that runs between Las Vegas and Tucumcari, little town there called Trementina, the old schoolhouse is still standing. My grandfather went to that school. He actually went to 6th grade to that school and then stopped going to school. So really coming from a family with deep roots to the land has given me, you know, a real connection to New Mexico. I was raised essentially in the Gila Wilderness, the very first designated wilderness in the United States. And so that really informs my ethic as your land commissioner, to do everything I can to protect our air, our water, our land, our wildlife, but also our people. So some examples of, you know, ways that I really looked to protection when I was in the state legislature. There was a proposal here in Santa Fe, actually, right at the entrance, the beautiful gateway to Santa Fe, La Bajada. I don't know if you all remember, about a half decade ago, there was a proposal for a mine there that my constituents in La Cienega called and begged me to come out and help protest and resist and fight, and so I did that during my time in the legislature. I have something Aaron didn't mention, which I was surprised about. I'm going to release my second executive order, so she did mention my first. My second executive order in early April, which will be to close off, with a moratorium, close off areas of state trust land in the greater Chaco Canyon area to new oil and gas leases.
I need the press release on that. I haven't got it.
And we are also forming a Chaco Canyon Working Group, and it's made up of folks that live in that region. Some advocates for sure, but mostly native residents of the area who, the Chaco Canyon, and probably knows this like the back of her hand, but the Chaco region is ancestral to almost all of our native people here in New Mexico. It's very often associated with Navajo because it's in the Navajo Nation or near, but the Pueblo, all of our 20 Pueblos also revere that area as ancestral and culturally significant, sacred, actually, is what I should say. So we are forming that. I have 2 children, 21 and 17, and I wanted them to see their mother as a woman serving in public office. I didn't want them to have an experience that women in public office were the exception. I wanted them to see that as the norm, and that was part of why I ran to begin with also. So a little bit about the land office. For those of you, who is familiar with the state land office? Kay, would you like to take over?
That's why I voted for you.
So we employ about 170 people in biology, engineering, archaeology, forestry, conservation, GIS, IT, and many more positions. And they are responsible for these 9 million acres. And they are responsible for raising revenue from these 9 million acres. So something that's very misunderstood often about the state land office is we're not like the BLM. We're not just land managers. We are actually a business office. We use the land to generate revenue for public schools, universities, and hospitals. I take that mandate incredibly seriously because I come out of education. I know where my bread and butter comes from. Part of what we do on the 9 million acres, we have agricultural lessees, about 3,500 of those, oil and gas leases, wind and solar leases, and commercial business deals. I'm working to raise as much money for the beneficiaries as possible to the trust, but I'm a land commissioner that's going to do business a little bit differently. So always in the past we've had sort of this very short-sighted pursuit of revenue with really no balance of stewardship. And I want to change that at the land office. I have already been hard at work to change that. And I believe the preservation of our land comes first. So some of the ways that I've done that so far, Aaron mentioned the coyote killing. I was also successful in getting our Oil Conservation Commission. So I'm not sure if you are familiar. New Mexico Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources has a division called the Oil Conservation Division. And oil companies make applications to that division for well siting, new drilling permits, anything regulatory. If those applications get protested, or if there needs to be a hearing, there's actually a hearing commission called the Oil Conservation Commission. I have a seat on that commission. And I was able, just at the beginning of my term, actually along with our brand new governor, we did this together, where we pushed back against, there was a company in the Northwest who wanted to double their drilling sites, double their well sites in the Northwest, and we were able to stop that right at the beginning of our terms.
Yes.
So, Aaron wanted to know about my Office of Renewable Energy. For the very first time at the State Land Office, we have asked the legislature, and it has been passed. Now, the budget is still on the governor's desk, so we don't know if it's been signed yet. But we have the funding in that budget to create an Office of Renewable Energy. This office will be just laser focused on recruiting renewable energy projects to state trust land. That includes transmission, wind, and solar. There is absolutely no reason we should not be the national leader in renewable energy generation in New Mexico. Our governor has already committed to pretty stiff renewable energy standards with the new portfolio, and I believe that the State Land Office with our 9 million surface acres can aid in getting to those renewable energy standards. So yes, that did pass, Aaron. Thank you for asking about that. Okay, this is something for Tom and Marilyn, since they're with Foundation for Open Government. The Land Office has suffered under this reputation, and well-deserved, I'm not saying it's inaccurate, of having smoke-filled backroom deals behind closed doors. You want to get any kind of information out of that office about anything that impacts us. I mean, the decisions at the land office impact you and I. Because state land is so checkerboard, invariably you're going to be right next to a piece of state trust land. But the decisions made at the land office were very tight-lipped. So we successfully advocated for and passed, still sitting on the governor's desk, but we hope to actually have it signed on Monday. We've been told we have a signing ceremony on Monday. A bill to require public meetings and details about a number of decisions at the state land office. So this will mandate. Now Stephanie's going to come in and be like, I'm the transparency commissioner, I will do that on my own. This bill actually mandates, no matter who the land commissioner is, they have to provide details, maps, legal descriptions, and hold public meetings on large transmission line build-outs, on pipelines that are significant in nature in their build-out, on land swaps. This was a huge one. When I was still in campaign mode, there was a large land deal that was being proposed between BLM and the state land office. It was impacting a number of communities, I think 11 counties in all. When I went down to visit some of these counties, they said the only way we even knew this deal was happening was we read some obscure notice in the newspaper. No description of what acres were being considered. No detail on any kind of map. We had to IPRA the land office, a public information request, to get any kind of detail on these land swaps. So land deals, land sales and land exchanges are also in this bill. So Daniel Ivy Soto was our sponsor. He successfully shepherded it through both the Senate and the House. And so we hope that the governor signs that on Monday.
Yay.
The other bill I advocated for was not as successful. It was a bill to have New Mexico be on par with Texas for our royalty rates, the rate that companies pay to use our natural resources of oil and gas. We are capped in statute at 20%. In the same basin, on that other side of the border in Texas, you know, the liberal state of Texas, those producers have to pay 25%. And so all we were asking for was to level that playing field. You would have thought the sky was falling. The industry came out pretty hard against us, but I will continue to pursue that because it's going to mean an additional $80 million of revenue a year. Because remember, the revenue from oil and gas actually gets invested in the Land Grant Permanent Fund, so it's almost like a double profit for the land office there. So, yes, that was that bill. So, in closing, I sort of have a request for you all, because you are such great communicators and reporters, and some of you are storytellers. You know what they say about stories? They're all true, and some of them really happened. To help me tell the story of the State Land Office. And it doesn't have to be formally. It shows Sharon, I'll just point out that Sharon wants to profile the Land Office. That's awesome. But what I'm asking is to help me get the message out to fellow New Mexicans that this office is so misunderstood, so overlooked, and so crucial. So crucial. There's so much autonomy in this office, which sort of scares me a little bit, right? What if we get a land commissioner, which we've had before, who is not trustworthy? So I really want to ask you to help me spread the word, whether formally or informally, it doesn't matter. But that's my request to you today, is to help me tell the story about our little office that could, 170 employees. We watch out for 9 million acres. We will bring in $1 billion in revenue in the next fiscal year because of how well oil and gas is doing. That means New Mexico taxpayers don't have to pay that $1 billion to support our schools and hospitals and universities. And so that's the story to be told. I'm actually going to take questions now because they haven't started serving yet. Yes, ma'am.